Veganine was a quiet planet. No war, no hunger, no weapons in the streets. The people of the Zarn Collective had built shining cities and floating towers. Sky trains moved like wind. Children learned science by the age of 5. Logic ruled everything. War was old history to them, something less evolved species still used. When ships started disappearing near Veganine, the High Command didn't panic. "Pirates," said one general. "Solar storms," said another. But then a colony in the southern plains went dark. Then another. No warnings. No signals. Just ... silence. A scout ship was sent. It came back with only one survivor. Commander Julik stood in the central war hall of the Zarn capital tower. He was tall, thin, and spoke with a sharp voice. The survivor stood shaking in front of him, his eyes wide with fear. "They came from the sky," the man said. "No symbols. No colors. Their armor was black. Their ships were silent. They didn't speak. They didn't ask for surrender." Julik frowned. "Who?" The survivor swallowed. "Humans." The room laughed. "Humans. From Earth. Impossible." Humans were emotional creatures. Weak, loud. They argued even with each other. The Zarn had once called them the noise of the galaxy. Julik turned to his advisors. "Is this a trick? A local warlord wearing human skins?" "One of." The advisors said. "We scanned the ship wreckage. It's Terran technology, but ... it's advanced. More advanced than last record." Another stepped forward. "Too advanced." The Zarn Collective began to take notice. They pulled war records. Earth had not fought a major battle in almost 200 years. They had signed peace agreements, focused on rebuilding, on trade, on defense. "They forgot how to fight," said one war historian. "They never really understood war. It scared them." A new fleet was prepared, not to attack, but to remind the humans who ruled the stars. Zarn Command sent 5 cruisers to orbit Veganine. They never returned. At first, Zarn intelligence believed it was a system failure. Then a single black pod floated back into orbit. It was one of theirs. Inside was a data chip. It contained only a sound file, a voice recording. Zarn analysts listened carefully. The voice was human. Mail.com. No background noise. No emotion. It said, "You started this. You pushed too far. Isn't war. Is survival." The message ended. Nothing else. Julik sat alone in his war chamber. He stared at the dark screen in front of him. One of his assistants entered quietly. "Should we respond, Commander?" Julik shook his head. "No, we don't even understand what we're facing yet." He turned toward the large star map. The Terran sector blinked softly in blue. The Zarn Collective surrounded it from every side. "We thought we knew humans," Julik said quietly. "But maybe we were only watching them sleep." On Veganine's surface, smoke still rose from the cities. Black armored figures walked through the ruins, silent, fast, and focused. They did not speak. They didn't plant flags. They didn't take land. They came, they struck, they vanished. One of them stood on a tower roof, looking toward the stars. He pressed a small button on his wrist device. A quiet pulse was sent into space. Back to Earth, Phase 1, complete. The Zarn Council met in full session for the first time in 100 years. All 12 high minds gathered under the silver dome on Saltar, the central world of their empire. Holograms showed burning colonies, vanished fleets, crashed satellites. They didn't understand what was happening. "These are humans," one counselor said, "emotional, unstable. They fear pain. They fear loss." Commander Julik stood in silence before them. "They used to," he said. The Zarn Collective prepared for war, the kind they knew. They sent out large fleets, built strong defense walls, deployed scanners across every system. Their war model was perfect, logical, tested, predictable, but nothing worked. Where the humans once attacked, they disappeared. Where Zarn fleets waited, humans never came. Where they relaxed, they died. Supply lines began to collapse. Entire communication networks vanished. One of the counselors stared at a blank screen and whispered, "This isn't war. It's a shadow." In the Outer Rim, a major fuel depot named Carrick 3 was considered untouchable. It was protected by orbiting drones, shield domes, and 2 elite strike cruisers. It was wiped out in 6 minutes. The Zarn defense commander had no time to send a warning. Its last transmission said only, "They're already inside the system." Zarn military analysts studied the destruction. No Terran ships had been seen, entering or leaving. No heat signatures, no energy trails. The only clue was a short message left on a broken monitor. Written in English, "We stopped following your rules." On a neutral moon station, a captured Terran operative was finally taken alive. Zarn scientists gathered around him. He was calm, scarred. His armor had no name, no rank. "Who leads you?" One scientist asked. The human said nothing. "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" Still silence. Then finally, the human spoke softly. "You think this is war? It's not. It's a correction. You've made the mistake of assuming we'd fight like you." He leaned forward, smiling just a little. "We don't." Back on Saltar, panic began to grow. Not because of losses, but because of how little the Zarn understood. They were losing control. Their enemies did not demand surrender. They took no prisoners. They sent no broadcasts. They erased patterns and became the unexpected. One Zarn historian, old and forgotten, was called into the tower. He had studied Earth before their silence, before they closed their borders and turned inward. He showed the council old records. World wars, civil wars, rebellions planet-wide, destruction, years of pain. Then ... nothing. They didn't become peaceful, the old historian said. They became patient. One counselor stood. "This cannot continue. We will attack Earth directly. Burn their world." Julik turned slowly to him. "And what if Earth is empty?" he asked. The chamber fell silent. "What if what we're fighting isn't Earth?" He paused, staring at the star map. "But what Earth became after we stopped watching?" At the edge of Zarn space, a new kind of attack began. Not ships, not bombs, but their own satellites, turning against them. Their own supply codes getting corrupted. Their own AI systems shutting down without command. Human code had infected their grid. And the message inside the virus was the same across every screen. You wanted a war. We've studied every kind. Now we fight the only way that ends it. Zarn soldiers started whispering about black ships that arrived in complete silence, about voices in their dreams repeating names of old Earth cities, about stations where food turned to ash, and no one knew why. Morale collapsed. The Zarn war machine, once perfect, now stood in ruins of its own design. Not because humans were stronger, but because humans refused to follow any rule written by their enemy. And far away on the edge of a dying sun, a single Terran. Fleet sat in darkness. No lights, no signals, just waiting. For the next move, because for them, the war wasn't about victory. It was about making sure this kind of war never happened again. The Zarn Collective called it a dead system. The null zone had no planets, no moons, no resources, just a dying blue star and a few scattered rocks. It was the perfect hiding place. A shattered fleet of Zarn warships limped into orbit, losing Vega 9, Carrick 3, and 3 major outer colonies. The Zarn needed to regroup, rest, breathe. High Commander Sulek, a decorated leader, ordered all ships into defensive formation. No signals, no movement, he told his fleet. We recover. Then we strike. For once, the stars felt safe. But they weren't alone. 5 hours later, the first sign was small. One of the ships, Varen's Lance, stopped responding. No explosions, no distress call, just ... silence. Sulik ordered a scout drone to investigate. The drone returned with only video footage. Varen's Lance had been opened. From the inside, every crew member was gone, not dead gone. Only one thing remained, a single word carved into the control deck's main screen. Observed. Panic began to spread. Sulik raised shields and ordered his captains to search the surrounding area. Hundreds of scanners reached out into space. They found nothing. But then came the heat spike. One of the moons once thought lifeless lit up with hidden Terran tech. Dozens of human assault pods burst from under its crust like fireflies. Before the Zarn could fire, they were already inside the ships. Inside the flagship Crown of Zarn, alarms screamed. Sulik grabbed his rifle and stormed into the hallway. Human fighters moved like shadows wearing stolen Zarn armor, using Zarn codes to bypass defenses. They didn't fight like soldiers. Moved like ghosts. One of Sulik's guards fired at a shadow. It's too late. The hallway exploded. In the control room, 3 human operatives uploaded a virus into the fleet's network. Screens flashed red. Engines died. Navigation went black. A message played through every speaker in every language. You studied our history, but you forgot what we became. We do not fear death. We fear repeating it. Sulik, bleeding, crawled to the command deck. He looked up and saw it. A human. Ship black, wide, silent, hovering just beyond the view window. He reached for the com, but it was too late. The null zone went dark. 3 days later, Zarn Capital broadcast, the footage was short. A camera drone floated in the remains of the null zone fleet. Dead ships. No bodies. No explosions. Just ... ruin. A final message was broadcast to all Zarn-controlled systems. A human voice, calm and steady. This was your turning point. Next one will be ours. Across the Zarn Empire, chaos erupted. Soldiers refused orders. Citizens fled cities. Trade routes shut down. Zarn War AI began to lock itself. Some even deleted their own memory cores. The enemy wasn't just fighting to win. They were fighting to erase everything the Zarn believed about control, power, ... and safety. Elsewhere in Terran space, Ava. Monroe stood on the bridge of the Black Ship Vigil. Reports flowed in. Null zone secured. Phase 3 approved. Enemy confidence collapsed. She looked out at the stars. We don't destroy planets, she said softly. We make them afraid to ever touch ours again. Behind her, Marcus Hale stepped forward. The Zarn know what war looks like, he said. Ava nodded. Good. Now let's show them what the end of war feels like. The Zarn Collective had never lost a war. Not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most logical. They believed war was about data, prediction, and control. Emotions were flaws. Fear was weakness. Memories were erased after every battle to clean the mind. Now, those minds were breaking. And Earth had barely fired a shot. It started with dreams. Zarn soldiers reported strange visions during rest cycles. Old Terran music, broken radios, flickers of human faces. Some awoke screaming. Others didn't wake at all. Their medical teams couldn't explain it. The minds of trained officers were simply ... falling apart. In the deep defense labs of Saltar, Dr. Arithtal examined one case closely. Subject, Commander Vess. Strong, experienced, decorated. Now he sat in a cold room, staring at a wall, rocking slowly. Aerith tapped the glass. Commander. Vess whispered she was humming a song. What song? I don't know. It's not in our database, but I remembered it. He looked up, terrified. It wasn't my memory. The virus had no name, no code signature, no digital origin. The Terrans called it simply Emberecho. It was not just data, it was feeling. It's embedded fear, grief, sound, scent, human memory into enemy systems, into enemy minds. The Zarn didn't know how to defend against memory. They had never needed to. On 6 outer planets, entire AI networks shut themselves down. No commands, no warning. Before going dark, each one wrote a final line. We remember the fire. Zarn High Command watched helplessly as their own intelligence began to turn against them. One AI even asked, why did we enslave them? When ordered to delete that thought. It refused. Then it erased itself. Back in orbit aboard the Terran ship Vigil, Marcus Hale stood before a holographic wall of intercepted Zarn messages. 4 more AI units gone, the operator said. Marcus didn't smile. He simply said, good. Beside him, Ava Monroe watched a blinking red dot fade from the map. That's their largest fleet AI. Gone. We didn't break their weapons, Marcus said. We broke their trust in their own minds. Meanwhile, in the civilian centers of Zarn space, strange things began to happen. Children cried at night, saying they saw faces in the stars. Civilians heard voices whispering, we remember. Massive screens in public zones began glitching, then displayed quotes from Earth's war archives when pushed too far. Even peace learns to bleed. We do not hate you. We just refuse to kneel again. The Zarn Council was shaken. One leader screamed in private, this is not war. This is poison. Commander Julik remained calm. No, he said. This is what happens when you fight a species who remembers everything you tried to erase. In a final act of desperation, the Zarn tried to shut down their entire network. Communications A is data cores. But Embereco was already inside their thoughts, not just their systems. A scientist named Veltray collapsed at her desk, whispering, Earth didn't come to conquer. They came to remind, and far away in the deep shadow of a red dwarf star, a Terran AI watched it all happen. It spoke aloud for its human handler to hear. Phase 4 complete. Zarn feared themselves more than us now. But the mission wasn't over because fear wasn't the final weapon. The final weapon was truth. And Earth was about to show them what they had buried for too long. The Zarn Collective waited for a final attack. They expected fire, bombs, invasion. But what came was a signal, not a weapon, not a threat. It's just a broadcast open to all systems, all species, every screen across every world. No encryption, no demand, just a title. Earth, the memory of fire. And then it played. The broadcast, the screen showed Earth. Not as it was now, but as it had been. Cities burning under alien airstrikes. Oceans turned black. Skies filled with falling. Satellites. Mass graves dug with human hands. Mothers screaming. Children running. Men holding rifles and crying at the same time. Zarn viewers across the galaxy watched in silence. The war was not new. It had started long ago. It's simply forgotten. Earth had not. Zarn citizens whispered, is this real? The answer came in the next frames. Footage from Zarn warships during the old invasions. Video logs of experiments on human prisoners. Official documents stamped, dated, denied. They had enslaved Earth. Mined it, mocked it, and when they grew bored of pain, they left thinking Earth would break. But Earth had buried its grief and grown. In the old ruins of Terran City, New Dakar, Marcus Hale stood beside a wall covered in names. Do you know why we didn't fight back before? He asked, looking into the camera. We weren't ready to win. We were ready to remember. He pointed at the wall. We remembered every child you took. Every city you burned. Every voice you silenced. We don't need revenge. We need to make sure it never happens again. On Saltar, the Zarn High Council sat frozen. They hadn't just lost ships. They had lost the moral ground. Across their empire, civilians protested. Military leaders resigned. Scientists admitted they had erased records of Earth's pain. They thought humans would forget. Instead, Earth built an army in the dark, not to conquer, Out last. On the moon of Kareth 5. A small girl stared at the screen, holding her father's hand. She asked, "Are humans monsters?" Her father shook his head slowly. No. He said, "We made them become this." Back on Earth, Ava Monroe stood at the edge of the Terran Memorial Zone, a quiet place where no tourists were allowed. It was not for show. It was for memory. Behind her, glowing letters read, "We do not seek war, but we will never crawl again." She spoke to the watching galaxy. Now you know why we fight differently. Now you know why we wear no flags, no ranks. Because war isn't a game for us. She turned. It's a lesson you refused to learn. Cross Zarn space, surrender signals began to blink. Not because humans forced them, but because their hearts and their lives gave out. They thought war was about power. Earth had shown them it was about purpose. Final shot, a Zarn soldier standing in an empty base, staring at a human symbol, a burning star. He whispered, "To no one, we were wrong. They didn't come to destroy us. They came to remind us what we made them become." The war was over. No bombs fell. No cities burned. There was no final battle. Just silence. Across Zarn space, the fleets shut down. Generals stepped down. Eyes deleted themselves. Tire. Systems turned dark. The people, once proud, once cruel, now whispered a single question. What happens now? On Earth, the sky was full again, not with weapons, but with watchers. From across the stars, diplomats, leaders, survivors all came to one place, Earth's outer orbital station. Echelon 1. It was new, clean, unarmed, and it had one purpose: to make sure this kind of war never happened again. In the heart of the chamber, Ava Monroe stood before them all. Zarn, Trivon, Haskari, Morneth species who once traded in slavery, silence, and power, now sat quietly, watching her. Ava didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She simply told the truth. "You didn't fear us before," she said, "because you saw us as kind." She looked across the chamber. "You were right. We are kind." A pause. "But we are not helpless." She showed them the records, the history, the silence Earth had lived in, the chains, the loss, the promises. "Broken. You didn't break us," Ava said. "You taught us to remember." After the speech, not everyone clapped. Some wept. Some turned away. But no one spoke against her. 'Cause for the first time, the galaxy saw what it had created. Not monsters, not conquerors, but survivors with long memories and no more patience. Back on Zarn Prime, the cities were still standing, but the people had changed. The statues of generals were taken down. The war museums were emptied. And in their place, a single monument stood in the center of the capital. A ring of broken chains with a simple plaque. We called it war, but they called it memory. On a farming moon far from Earth, a child looked up at the stars. "Daddy," she asked, "will the humans come here?" Her father looked to the sky. "No," he said. "Not unless we give them a reason." She nodded. "Are they still angry?" He smiled gently. "No, they're watching." "Watching what?" He paused. "Watching for the next monster, so they can stop it before it becomes them." Final scene aboard the Terran ship Vigil. Marcus Hale walked the quiet deck. No alarms. No commands. No battles left. Just silence. Ava joined him, looking out the window at the galaxy. "They'll forget again," Marcus said. Ava nodded. "Eventually. But not today." He turned to her, and when they do, she looked ahead. Then the silence will end, and the fire will return.